Greetings, I'm travelling Matt here, the end of another day here in India, and I'm here. The question is, where is here? That's not telling us a lot because it's dark at the moment, but in the day, if you could see it, it's a stunning vista of houses dotted all along the slopes, and then up in the distance the Himalayas. I am in Dharamsala. Now that was not the original plan. My original plan was today to get up to a place called Manikaran, which is also in the Himalayas, but it's a hot spring place on the, I think it's the Saraswati River. And it's been somewhere I really wanted to visit ever since I first read about it. And I wanted to go there. And I was even, like, late last night, I was thinking, yeah, I'll do it. And then I realised it's just too much. It was just too much. It was literally, from Chandigarh, it would have been, I think, 11 hours on the bus. So I wouldn't have got in there till late. And then I would have to leave in the morning and do about another 11 hours or so to get to Dharamsala. Not only that, but what I've learned today is that buses in India are horrific. And 11 hours on one would have been unthinkable, let alone twice. I'd done about 5 hours on one today, and that was more than I ever want to do again in my life. So what has happened? Well, I think my last video was within the sort of luxurious confines of Haridwar railway station, where I was feeling quite miserable because I had a cold. And I was really tired and achy, and I was sitting waiting for my train. That train turned up 2 hours late, and it was a sleeper train. I got to my bunk, and there was a guy in it, and he was old, and I was about to have an operation. And they were like, "Please, can we leave him in the lower bunk because he's old and all that?" So I'm like, "Okay." So I ended up having his bunk, which was high up. I mean, he would never have got up into it, to be fair. And but it was in the one compartment of the train. It was this big Punjabi Sikh family who just decided to have a family party and keep the lights on and have a big meal at, you know what, like 11 o'clock at night or something. Well, I'm sorry, but you know, we're already 2 hours late. I ain't getting much sleep anyway. So I tried to sleep on that bunk, didn't do it very well. Was always worried. I don't sleep very well when I'm scared about when I have to wake up. And of course, the trains only stop at a certain amount of time at each station, and if I'd slept through Chandigarh, then what? Because it's not the end of the line. Nobody bothers to tell you. So in the end, I had set an alarm for the time we should have got in, even taking into account the lateness. When I got there, we were in a station, so I'm like, oh, bugger, is this Chandigarh? No. Chandigarh was still like another 40 odd miles away. So I sat in the vestibule in the end, like a bit of a zombie for the last 40 miles of the journey, feeling crap, this minging cold, all achy and that. Hadn't slept very well for 2 nights running. Then got off and got a tuk-tuk to the bus station. And he wanted about 400 for it, which I thought was a bit steep, until he told me it was 15 kilometres away. And it was. Like, he wasn't lying. The bus station is 15 kilometres away from the railway station. Now, the reason is Chandigarh is a modern city. It was a planned capital for Punjab and Haryana. Because obviously Punjab, the main city was Lahore, which got given to the Pakistanis. So when India, became India, Punjab which was one of the great provinces of the Indian Empire, was this kind of tiny cut-off bit. So what they did is they built a new capital, and they got the very famous French architect. I'm so going to mispronounce his name, but Le Corbusier, who's this like modernist. I mean, he wanted to flatten Paris and replace it with skyscrapers. And what he did is he planned an incredibly boring city on the grid pattern. I mean, I guess you could say it's good because it doesn't have the traffic problems of India. At least it didn't when I was there, but then I was there at 4 o'clock in the morning, so maybe nowhere has traffic problems then. But yeah, it's just grid. It reminded me of Islamabad, which is an equally soulless dump as well. I don't like these modern planned cities. I much prefer the old ones. And what kind of idiot, be he a famous French architect or not, puts a bus station 15 fucking kilometres away from the railway station? Like, come on, dude. That ain't smart. Like, even I can work that one out. Transport interchange, it's not hard, mate. But anyway, I got to the bus station, and there things got a bit easier. So I went to the desk, and I said, you know, when's the next bus to Dharamshala? The seat guy behind the counter goes, no. There was no bus to Dharamshala, but there was a bus to a place called Kangra, which is like some market town that's not very far from Dharamshala, and then I could change and get another. So I got on that bus, and it was a really old, crammed bus, full of people. Like, I was literally like that the whole journey, and I fell asleep, and I fell asleep for probably an hour or so, maybe more. I don't know. The time was just all... I remember waking up and I was in Anandpur Sahib, which is a holy Sikh city that I want to visit, and I don't think I'll be able to, unfortunately. Kiratpur and Anandpur are next to each other. Really wanted to go to them. Probably won't. But, yeah, and then I fell asleep again, and I slept for whatever. And then I woke up, and we were leaving the flatlands behind and winding into the foothills. Which wasn't good because I was feeling better in a way, but then another way I was feeling worse because all the winding about, I started to feel like sick, and it wasn't helped by the fact there was a girl in front of me who also felt sick and then threw up everywhere, all over the bus. And because everyone was pending, nobody could clear it up or anything. I just felt shit, and it was horrible. But I actually managed to get to Kangra without throwing up, which was good. Got off the bus, and then the guy who was like doing the tickets on the bus, he was a really nice guy actually. He showed me to the Dharamsala bus, and I immediately got on that, and it set up as soon as I got on, and that had a lot more space. It was, I mean, it wasn't any better as a bus; it was just less people on it. And I asked them how long it'd been, and they're like half an hour, and it was like the local bus. And it went up the hill for about 10-15 kilometres up to Dharamsala. Now, Dharamsala, quite remarkable. It's very much on a hill. No tuk-tuks. The only place I've been in India with no tuk-tuks. But the taxis were all run by the ex-servicemen's taxi drivers union. And I got one of these taxis to look for a hotel, and they were all full. Like, literally, we went to about 5 hotels, all full. Apparently 5,000 English people have come for this cricket match. Should have booked ahead, really. But then we got one, and it was 2,000. Yeah, well, they wanted 2,500 at first. And then he said, that's too steep. We walked away, and then they said, oh, we got a room for 2. So, been to this room, and I just thought, yeah, I'll have that straight away. And so got myself booked in, and by this time I was feeling a bit better. The cold had kind of faded a bit, and I was aware it was about 1 o'clock. I was a bit hungry, but also aware that today's my day to do stuff in Dharamsala, and it is a place worth exploring in and of itself, you know, regardless of the cricket stadium. So what I did, I had some momos up at this wonderful bakery up the road, absolutely wonderful, and they amazing views on the terrace at the back, and they actually serve proper coffee, unlike anywhere else in India where it's always instant, so that was fantastic. And then I took what is called the Dharamshala Skyway, which is this cable car, newly opened, and it's, I'd say it's newly opened, it's really switched, but the road to it collapsed in a landslide, and so you have to walk over a muddy path to get to it. I mean, that's very India, I guess. And went on this cable car one of the most incredible cable car journeys of my life. I got the statistics somewhere. I think it's about 1.7 kilometers long. Did it say something like that? No, it has to be longer than that. It felt longer. Maybe it was only that, but and it was, and it climbs to certainly like 1,000, from about 1,300 meters where we are now to 1,700 meters up there. Unbelievable scenery. I mean, this is the Himalayas. I know it's in the foothills, but even so, it's pretty bloody spectacular. And then got to this place called McLeod Ganj, right? And that's like where it's like the backpacker hangout and where trekkers set off from and all that kind of stuff. And so, but it's also where the Dalai Lama has the Tibetan government in exile. So it's full of Tibetan monks and hippies. And so I walked up the main street. It was all the kind of, the hippie shops and all that kind of stuff. And there's a wonderful Tibetan temple in there, actually. And I did the whole spinning the prayer wheels thing, which I always find quite moving. I like that. And then there was Tibetan monks chanting inside. So I listened to them for a while. My experience of Tibetan Buddhism, it's very trendy in Britain. Like, a lot of people come Buddhists, they all want to become Tibetan Buddhists. I'm like, well, why don't you want to be a Vietnamese Buddhist or a Chinese Buddhist? But nah, you've got to be Tibetan. And they do seem to be some of the more way out ones. So I guess that will appeal to some people. But, I'd read books about when the Dalai Lama was running a theocracy, and it wasn't all as cool as it should have been. I'm not saying I support what the Chinese have done, but it was a very, very backward state. So backward, so separated from the world that it was not in the International Postal Union. If you wanted to send a letter in those days, you had to get a stamp to the border, and then they put another stamp on afterwards. That's the kind of isolation. Even North Korea was in the postal union. And, and there was, life expectancy was very short, very isolationist, very superstitious. And, but, that's not the romantic view that people want to hold, I guess. But on the other hand, sitting in that temple, there is a certain power to it, and there's a certain beauty to their temples. They're very ornate. And of course they have this Lama culture, and the Lamas are like kids that are chosen at birth, that are meant to be like reborn from Lamas that have died recently. And apparently when Lama dies, they look for certain signs, like a mole running across a floor or something like that. But they're interesting. They're interesting, the Tibetans. I don't know what I think of them yet. But I did go to the Dalai Lama's temple, and there was a lot of stuff about, oppression of the Chinese and stuff. Saw his throne. And, it's something to explore more, I think. Something to explore more. A friend of mine who's into kind of Tibetan Buddhism, he gave me a book that I meant to bring with me, I forgot. All about a very famous, I think he was like a robber or something, who saw the error of his ways and became a Miller Ripper, I think his name was. So anyway, that's that. Went back down on the cable car. Incredible views again. I got the cable car to myself this time. It was wonderful. And then I took a taxi down to the stadium to get a ticket. Because you can't work out how to do the online ones if you haven't got an Indian number. It's a nightmare. And then there was this big crush at the ticket office, but then this one Indian guy says, do you want a ticket? I'll sell you mine for 1,500. He had a spare, so I've actually got a ticket for 5 days of cricket, which you don't need. So let's see what happens. Cricket tomorrow. Really tired now. Just going to go up to the bakery to have some more food, and then it's getting a bit chilly, so I've got my coat on. First time that's been the case in India. Anyway, this is me, Uncle Travelling Matt, from gorgeous Dharamshala Skyway.
Hare